안녕하세요. 한국경제신문 뉴욕 특파원 박신영입니다. 오늘은 월가 중견투자은행인 Smbc 니코 아메리카의 시니어 이코노미스트 트로이 러드카 씨를 모시고 미국 경제 분석과 전망을 들어보겠습니다. 이로 인한 한국 경제에 미치는 영향도 함께 말씀해 주실 예정입니다. Smbc 니코 아메리카의 총 자산은 약 186억 6천만 달러입니다. 방금 말씀드린 대로 월가의 중견투자은행에 속합니다. Yesterday, the Fed cut rates by 0.25 percent point, but market is reacting very negatively, I think. Powell's remarks were hawkish. How would you assess the current inflation situation?
So the inflation situation, at least in the eyes of the Fed, is not good. They think that disinflationary progress has stalled, and as a result, it warrants a relatively hawkish set of communication from them going forward 1, 2, 3 years into the future. Our view at Smbc is that inflation is in fact coming down. There are many things to substantiate this. We are relatively encouraged, and it seems like markets are as well, given by the reaction this morning.
Do you think this will cause the stock market to slow down constantly?
It certainly has the potential to. Since the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve and central bank policy globally has been very easy. And effectively, what that has meant is that financial assets have been able to inflate tremendously, particularly in the United States. So, as that ease is dialed back and policy becomes restrictive, as a result, financial assets should disinflate as well. And forward-looking expectations need to moderate some, and as a result, prices are going to have to come down, if this is indeed the case going forward.
As you know, the Fed's SEP shows a strong U.S. economic growth. Is this sustainable? Because, for instance, PE ratio in stock market is historically high. How do you think about that?
So our view is that economic growth in the United States has brightened substantially over the last few months. A couple of things which have dogged the U.S. for the last 4, almost 5 years has been a situation where some sentiment has been depressed, both for households, but businesses as well. You're now seeing a situation, because interest rates have come down, because you have a president that was elected that's considered to be business friendly, sentiment for households has jumped, as it also has for small businesses. And conceivably, what this means is that durable goods purchases could pick up for households as they feel more secure in their jobs and they feel more confident in the economy. And small businesses may be more willing to invest in capital equipment and property, plant, and equipment. And as a result, we see a situation where growth could reaccelerate from 2.7% at present to north of 3% next year. So we think that the economic outlook is actually brightening.
So why Trump supports business, as you say? Some believe the market is underestimating the negative effects of his tariff policies. And many people believe it's almost certain that tariff will drive inflation higher next year. So what's your view about that?
First is, back in his first administration, he signed into law something called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, more commonly known as TICJA. And what it did is it brought corporate tax rates down somewhat notably. Those tax cuts are supposed to expire at the end of 2025. This has been a tremendous source of uncertainty for both businesses and households. Now that he's been reelected and he will have a mandate, meaning he will have control of both the upper chamber of Congress, but also the lower chamber as well, he's been given the green light to extend those tax cuts. So you have a tremendous source of uncertainty going away. That's a big positive. On the tariff side of things, our view is he's not looking to keep these tariffs in place indefinitely. This is a strategic negotiating tool to bring countries to the negotiating table so that we can arrange fair trade deals with our trading counterparties. Since free trade has taken off in the United States, there's this sentiment, at least in the political class, shared on Main Street and with people as well. But there's this sense that the U.S. is playing by one set of rules, whereas our major trading counterparties are playing by a different set of rules, where they're erecting trade barriers and enacting protectionist trade policies to the U.S.'s disadvantage. So the idea is that Trump will will be using tariffs as a lever to try and bring countries to the negotiating table.
How about move on to the subject about China? China is expected to experience a slowdown in growth due to Trump tariff. And this could affect growth in Asian countries like South Korea. So there are concerns that South Korea's economic growth rate could fall below 2%, for instance. So could this push more global investors toward the US stock market?
Short answer is absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why US stocks have not only performed incredibly over the last few years, but I think it's one of the reasons for the relative outperformance, not just on a nominal basis, but on a relative basis as well.
How does Wall Street view the Korea economy? Could you tell us about that?
First is South Korea and Japan and other Asian economies will be collateral damage if there is indeed a trade war between the U.S. and China. So that's a point of weakness. However, there's also a situation where capital is going to be flowing out of China, and it may inadvertently move into South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Laos, etc. So it's difficult to say what the net effect will be, but China will bear the brunt of the slowdown. So China-sensitive areas it's definitely going to be a point of weakness.
Korea's economy heavily depends on the semiconductor industry, and AI is driving growth in this sector, definitely. So do you think the AI momentum will continue, or will other semiconductor companies besides NVIDIA and TSMC also benefit?
Short answer is absolutely. This alternative artificial intelligence dynamic, this is here to stay. This is a very real phenomenon. It will fundamentally change our lives in many ways for the better. You will remember in 2000, with the IT bubble, assets were pricing the potential transformation of that technology. And you're seeing a similar situation now, not a bubble, but you are seeing a similar situation now. And I fully expect AI to be a part of the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I fully expect that our lives will change for the better. And I don't see it going anywhere. And NVIDIA, so on and so forth, that they will all perform very well as a result of this.
Trump wants to reduce the trade deficit, but the Fed's monetary policy is supporting a strong dollar. And the Fed's policy impacts economies like Korea's. And what is your outlook for the dollar? Could you also share your thoughts on its impact on emerging market currencies like the Korean won?
Initiating trade wars is dollar supportive. In the event that you are serious about bringing countries to the negotiating table, using tariffs as a lever is fundamentally at odds with having a softer dollar. So I think over the next few years, the dollar is going to perform really well. I think it's going to outperform peer currencies. I don't think we'll get a softer dollar. And as a result, it's going to be difficult to see how the trade deficit comes down. The deficit, however, it's not only because we have a strong dollar, but it's also because, and this is a Keynesian accounting identity, of how large the fiscal deficit is. The larger the fiscal deficit, the larger your trade deficit. So the only way in which I could see them getting their trade deficit down is if you bring the deficit down. And that's very difficult to do. As for Korea, one of the things the U.S. will do to try and gain a coalition around these values of cracking down on abusive trade practices is the U.S. is going to try and strike friendlier trade agreements with everyone outside of China. That includes South Korea. That includes Japan. You're going to befriend everyone else. And I think that's going to be to the benefit of those countries. And what that allows the U.S. to do, or what that allows Donald Trump to do, is that allows him to say to Xi Jinping in China, look at the benefits of our trade relationship with South Korea and Japan. Look at the success they've had. We can deliver the same thing for you in your economy, but you need to help us on items XYZ. I think for the most part, I think it's actually a slightly positive development for South Korea, but time will tell.
Do you think the tariff will actually be implemented, all of them?
Short answer, no. I don't think so. For the most part, I think it's just a negotiating tool. I'm an optimist. I think a lot of the world's leaders recognize that there are many problems and they can be worked through. So I don't think all of them will be implemented. No.
Have you ever heard about Korea president impeachment? Could you refer your opinion about how that impeachment affect Korea credit record or Korea economy? How about that?
South Korea is not alone in this. We are very much victims of this as well, but political uncertainty is a negative for markets. It's a negative for all assets. If you can't trust your government to act responsibly, if you can't trust your government to act efficiently, why would you trust the currency? So that's point number one. However, again, I think at the end of the day, a strong economy is a strong economy, and that makes up for a lot. And South Korea has one of the most innovative economies in the world. So although it is a negative, I firmly expect this period of short-term uncertainty to pass.
Korean investors, especially our subscribers, are highly interested in the US stock market. So what is your outlook for the stock market next year? Is it going to up to 7,000?
It's certainly possible. And one thing, we've been telling our clients is that although valuations are stretched, they're very aggressive, you're in a situation now where it seems like there are few alternatives. You have problems basically in every other major growth engine globally. You have problems in Europe, you have problems in China, and as a result, your options are very limited if you are going to try and put to work hundreds of billions of dollars. So it almost leaves the U.S. as a shining star almost by default. Yes, there are problems that could absolutely derail this rally, but I'm not betting against the American economy. I think we absolutely could hit 7,000, but there are risks. If inflation reaccelerates, not our base case, but if inflation reaccelerates, I think that would be a profoundly risk-off development.
But Warren Buffett, his cash reserve have reached an all-time high. So people get nervous about that. How could you translate that record high cash reserve?
And it's a fantastic point, and it's well taken. And it's not just Warren Buffett. You have major executives elsewhere. I don't want to name names specifically, but effectively what this means is Warren Buffett is a famous value investor, and he has built up a record cash position. And what that suggests is that the market is on a broad-based level, poorly valued. It's overvalued. And he's going to wait. He's going to sit and wait for a better opportunity to jump in. We share those concerns. We do think things are overvalued. We do think they are stretched, but these things have a lot of momentum. The famous quote from Keynes, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay liquid. Basically, the implication of that is when the music's playing, you got to dance. So even though valuations are high, they can remain high for a long time. And that's kind of what our house view is.
Thank you for your very kind response. I hope to see you next opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.